Okay, I'm going to record now. Thank you, Kim. Do you think I need to go back to repeat this page? Okay, anyway. So then I also want to highlight sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So in some of the questions, I think if you are asked, so if you are giving a case and if you're asked, do you think this auditor has achieved sufficient appropriate audit evidence to make a reasonable conclusion? Then it seems to be a higher level question, because it's not just copy down something at hand from the textbook or from accounting standards, from auditing standards. It is more about your professional judgment, because you need to analyze the case one by one, case by case. So how would you develop a proper answer if you get this sufficient appropriate evidence question? First, I would like you to check the strength and quality of the evidence. For example, in some areas for accounts receivable, usually you need to have the confirmation. If they don't have the confirmation evidence, then I think the evidence might not be strong enough, right? Unless they say they have already got alternative, satisfactory alternative audit evidence from the transactions. Okay. Quantity of evidence. For example, if they are doing a test, doing an audit test based on sample of 100, like one of the tutorial question, let's say, okay, so the tolerant level for the control effectiveness is 3%, but after you've done the sample test, you have noticed the deviation amount is much greater than 3%. Then that means the tested control is not consistent with the preliminary assessed control risk level, right? So in that sense, so if you don't adjust your audit plan, then the subsequent audit evidence wouldn't be sufficient. What would you do? Then you will need to expand the audit test, both for the test control and also more importantly, you also need to expand your audit test in your substantive audit test procedures. Because for a lower control rate, for a higher identified control risk, that means there would be higher overall audit risk. So there will be a higher risk of material misstatement in this area. So of course you need to do more detailed tests, right? Does it make sense? I didn't make it specific to any questions, so it's just very general discussion. Yeah. So the other one is accounts at risk adequately addressed. Okay, so I just assume in some cases, so you will be able to identify one account will be at higher risk based on the given information. Therefore, of course, you need to put more effort onto this account, right? To do more tests onto this account. And the same thing is about the assertion risk. So if you are able to identify further accounts at risk, further assertions at risk from those given information, so you would need to design additional tests for those specific accounts and specific assertions. Then the next point is appropriate evidence. So as we mentioned before, so the evidence need to be appropriate, to be strong enough to serve your audit objective. So for example, if the case tells you, so in the interim review of the half-year statement, auditors has collected enough evidence from the analytical procedures about the company's internal control, but in the end of the year audit, now the auditor has concluded, based on the interim audit, we have got enough evidence for the test control, so we don't need to do further test controls at the end of the year. So do you think you have got sufficient audit evidence? Of course not, right? Because in the end, so because the control should be applied continuously throughout the year in the organization. So when you do the test controls, in addition to the interim test of the controls, you also need to have another set of end of year test controls to ensure the control is there throughout the whole year. Okay. Also here, when we talk about sufficient evidence, so for example, I can just give you an example. For example, the test. So when you choose your sample, you have choose the random sample for the accounts receivables. But in the provided information, we know the company, let's say, okay, 1/3 or half of accounts receivables are from the top 5 customers. In that situation, I think just randomly select your sample might not be sufficient, right? Probably you really need to focus on the top customers. So in addition to the random sample test, you would also get a special sample of the large debtors, the large customers, to do another sample test for those big customers. Do you get it? So sometimes you can also easily identify whether the given sample is proper or not. Okay, so the last point here is consistent conclusion from evidence. What does that mean? So if in a case you have been giving evidence about the same cycle, same section, same account, but from different types of evidence. For example, accounts receivable confirmation gave you the evidence to show everything is perfect. However, when you do the transaction inspections, the evidence shows you there might be problems in terms of authorization. Then the evidence seems to be inconsistent regarding some particular assertions. In that case, you actually need to identify the difference and then to further investigate the potential inconsistent conclusions. So basically, do more tests. Okay, identify the inconsistency and then to do more investigations. Is this okay? So here I use the sales cycle as example. Of course, you can also do the your own revision on purchase, PPE, inventory, cash, and also payroll, which we covered in lecture 8 and 10. And also, when we talk about substantive testing procedures. Remember, so going concern should always be an important area. If any information from those sectional audit tells you the potential going concern problem, so this will be a pervasive issue and you should consider it is very serious, right? And also, in a lot of cases, there may be suggested potential fraud, and we know fraud risk will have impact on this particular area. But if you go back further, it may also indicate potential problems in the company's control. And also may also have impact pervasively around all the organization, not just restricted to the specific area. Okay. I think, so for lectures 8 to 10, we have, I have discussed the most important things, right? Next is lecture 11. I'm not going to spend time on this because I think last week, actually, the tutorial has extensively covered everything about audit completion and audit opinions. So I'm not going to spend further more time here. But I would like to highlight this yellow section. So the quiz question, if it is about the subsequent events, usually your decision will be around, is this adjusting or non-adjusting? And then if it is adjusting, what would you do for adjusting? If it is non-adjusting, what would you do as an auditor? And then probably you would also be asked, so what will be the subsequent audit test you want to do? Or are there any suggested audit conclusion, audit opinion for those subsequent events? And actually we have gone through quite a few lecture examples and tutorial questions regarding subsequent events. Okay. Lecture 11, part 2 is about audit reporting, actually audit opinions. So here I just want to emphasize, for those audit opinions, you always need to justify your answer. And I'm not going to go to details here today because last week I think we have spent 1 hour lecture and also 2 hours of tutorials to cover those questions. And remember last week we did emphasize, so in different situations, the going concern opinion could also be different. It could include unmodified with emphasis and matter on going concern. It could be qualified opinion regarding going concern, or even worse, it could be adverse opinion also regarding going concern. Okay. So that is a summary for the lecture 8 to lecture 11. Any question here? Hi. Hello. Hello. Are you still with me? Oh, good. No more question about the lecture summary? Okay. So I'm going to go to the sample questions now. Attention. Okay, now I'm going to move to the sample exam questions. Okay. So first, Okay. So first, in the, got something very hard in control the screen. Okay. So the sample question are from the tutorial questions. So that actually means none of them will be the final exam question. I need to let you know, okay? So first, let's go to the question 6. So we know question 6 will be about the teamwork, right? So basically you have gone through your group assignments. So you do have some basic understanding regarding teamwork. I would also suggest you to read those contents because this provides you more information about the team working skills. And then in the final exam, you will be giving a 5-mark question. So about self-reflection on teamwork. And then you are going to use what you learned from your group assignment and also what you learned from those websites to answer your questions. So is this all good? Okay. Maybe I could add some more explanation here. So for the self-reflection question, there's no standard answer. That means, so I'm going to evaluate, the marker is going to evaluate your answer based on the information included in the answer, right? So if you provide more critical thinking, provide more comprehensive understanding, provide more good feedback regarding the self-reflection, then you are more likely to get good mark on this question. Okay. So remember question 1 will be about ethics and auditor independence. So here I just copied down 1 tutorial question from the textbook. So on this question, this require to identify and explain the potential threats to independence and also explain the possible actions to eliminate the threats identified in A. Have you done this question? Not yet. So would you like to go through the question or would you like me just discuss what you need to pay attention to when you answer these type of questions? We can do both because, so if we couldn't finish all the questions now, we can also extend the lecture actually into the 8 p.m. tutorial, right? So it should be fine. I'm asking, so would you like to do the questions all together here? Or would you like just get my comments regarding which part need to be focused on in answering these type of questions, the tips of answering these type of questions? Go through the question, okay. Okay, it's all good. If we want to go through the question, can you read it now? I suppose, in answering this type of question, I would actually want you to get first the thread or threads, and then for all those threads, you will need to provide justifications, right? And then you need to provide actions, suggested actions, safeguards, etc. So in this case, are you able to identify the threads? Suppose this question is 7 marks. That means, so 55 marks randomly allocated into 2.5 hours, right? So for every half an hour, that's about 11 marks. So probably you can use up to 15 or 20 minutes to finish this question. So here I just suggest you also check the time. So don't spend too much time on one question. Okay. All right, so now I need your response. So are you able to identify the potential threats from the case?
The major threat is a self-review. And
The
for
major
Alex,
what?
the major threat would be self-review.
Self-review.
For the intellectual property. And for Alex, there is a minor self-interest, which would be still perceived as a self-interest threat.
And also the self-interest, right? Okay, and then in the self-review, can I also ask you to provide some justifications?
Because they valued the intellectual property during the year. So there's obviously a self-review of your own work. So the auditor.
So the firm.
The firm.
Provided valuations to the intellectual property. And now the firm will be auditing what the same firm has validated, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what about the self-interest?
Alex has even though it says it's not material to him, the perception would be it's still material that he has a self-interest by owning shares in the CDL.
So the member holds shares in the client. So this is which is a typical self-interest situation for auditor independence specific to financial interests, right?
And I suppose it's more major because he has, I suppose the assumption is he has direct control over the ownership of those shares. So it's not through like a superannuation fund or something like that.
So, okay. So directly hold shares in the clients. So this is a typical and significant self-interest situation, right? And also in answering this question, I'm not asking you actually to check which clause in APS 110 is about. It's not very necessary in this case, but I need your understanding. So you don't have to cite the APS 110 clauses. Okay, so let me make a note here. No need to cite APS 110 clauses. Okay. And also Lane said familiarity. Okay, I can also type in familiarity here. But I need your justification. Lane, why do you think it's also about familiarity? Okay, so Alex owns shares in the company. So Alex is a shareholder of the company, but as we analyze, so it is the self-interest issue. So not a familiarity issue, right? Because holding shares is a very, very typical self-interest issue, which is not allowed from APS 110's point of view, which is also not allowed in Corporations Act. Okay. All right. So any other suggestions? So actually now we identify two. One is self-review and also the other one is self-interest. And also we provide justifications, explanations, right? So how would you suggest actions or safeguards?
Alex probably shouldn't be involved in the audit.
So,
or he could sell the shares, I suppose.
Alex should be removed from auditing to eliminate. Okay, so this is in respondents to the self-interest issue, right? Any other suggested solution here to withdraw from the team? So yes, so Alex should withdraw or to be removed from the audit team.
Or he could sell the shares.
So, okay. So Alex should dispose the shareholding before he joins the team, joins the audit. Okay. Any other suggestion? So, okay, so here, when you consider any safeguards or suggestions, how would you develop your suggestions? So, personal level, you got some suggestion here, right? And actually, you can also think the office level, the firm level suggestions. For example,
well, a firm could have a policy that you don't purchase shares in audit clients, but that's a bit late.
so policy in the firm should be in place. So I didn't put the complete sentence for you, but you need to, right? So the policy in the firm regarding the self-interest and financial interest should be in place to avoid this kind of situation. But actually, those three suggestions are all about the self-interest problem. So you haven't answered the self-review actions or the recommendations regarding the self-review.
It's probably too high risk for Newports to actually undertake the audit due to the valuation that they've done on the intangible assets, and because the intangible assets are material to the statement of financial position. So I'm not sure. I think they possibility that they should withdraw from doing the audit.
So the firm shouldn't be appointed as the auditor, or the firm should withdraw from the audit because the self-review the threat is not likely to be eliminated to an acceptable level otherwise, right? Okay, so that is firm level action. Any other possible solutions? So this one is a one-off solution, but maybe there are also some alternative solutions for the self-review issue.
You could use different people if you didn't believe that it was material. I suppose you'd use different people to the people who did the valuation within the firm, and probably use peer reviewers. So
should be Site 4. Independent valuation should be Site 4 on the intangible assets, right? And also for this one, actually also related audit policy in the firm, related independence policy in the firm should be in place. So before they get into this type of awkward situation, they should have already got this policy to avoid the happenings of this information. Okay. So in answering this question, we identify the threats. We provide justifications. We provide suggested actions and safeguards. Then I think that should be enough. Yes, so probably use separate experts, so independent valuation is used, right? Is this all good for this question? I just want to emphasize, identify the threats. You do have a few options, right? Okay. So remember, in this topic, what are the ethical principles? Could you recall them? What are the threats to independence? Could you also recall them? What's the difference of independence in mind, independent in appearance? So in any of the cases, are you able to identify the potential breach of principles? Or the threats to independence? Are you able to provide justifications? And then are you able to also give suggested actions or safeguards? If you say yes to all of them, I think you'll be okay for this question. Okay, question 2. Legal liabilities. So suppose you are giving a legal liability question. You have been given this case, how would you answer? Are you still here? Okay. Check duty of care, check negligence, check the 6 points. Very good. Very good direction to think. But how would you put all your thinking into the answer box? Question is, will the company be able to recover its losses from Black? Justify your answer. Okay, so let's take a break and then we come back at 7. So I'll give you 7 minutes to think about this question, or maybe give me a more comprehensive answer to this question. Okay. All right. So see you at 7.7. And I will be back very soon.